At times now, if I wake up at night from a dream, I don't remember how old I am. I lie alone in this grand old house, and my mind floods with scenes from another Wilmington, a lifetime ago, it seems. Nowadays, my sight is poor, and I write with difficulty. But God is good to me, enabling me to keep my mind perfectly clear. My childhood is vividly impressed on my memory. At these wakeful hours of the night, I think back to Famines, the war between the states, when Wilmington fell into the hands of Yankee troops. We had to leave our home. In October 1865, we were finally allowed to return to Wilmington. My parents picked up the threads and began life again, as it were. That's when my strange dreams began, recurring nightmares of Yankee soldiers invading our home, and with them, an army of giant rats. It was December that year. We had a little gathering to celebrate our first Christmas back in our beloved home. Before the party began, my best friend Josie and I, along with my sisters, Belle and Eliza, went out back to the carriage house to take a plate of food to Mr. Drosselmeyer. I loved hearing Mr. Drosselmeyer's stories and couldn't wait to get there. I kept calling back to Josie, "Hurry up, Miss Davis, before this food gets stone cold." Drosselmeyer was an odd man, not highly regarded by most. He had been a sailor on a blockade runner, but he was no friend of the Yankees, so we trusted him. He had a patch over one eye, and Pa told me that he lost it during the battle at Fort Fisher. But Mr. Drosselmeyer said, no Yankee took my eye. It was Dame Mouserink herself, Queen of the Mice. And on that afternoon, we learned who Dame Mouserink was. Drosselmeyer was in a carriage house where he had been carving a wooden nutcracker. Josie thought it was as ugly as it could be and said so under her breath. But Drosselmeyer overheard. "Ugly it is," he said. "And do you know why, Miss Davis and Miss Bellamy? Why the nutcracker looks this way?" He made us sit on an old wooden bench and told a story he called The Hard Nut. With a wink of his good eye, he made himself a character in the story. A long time ago, there was a king and a queen. After many childless years, they had a baby daughter and named her Pearly-Pat. Princess Pearly-Pat grew to be the most beautiful child in the kingdom, or so everyone told her, and so she believed. Now the royal family shared their castle with Dame Mouserink and all her mouse children and nieces and nephews. One day, on the king's birthday, he asked his wife to make his favorite dish, ham with red-eyed gravy and collards. Well, while the queen cooked, Dame Mouserink and all her mouse children and nieces and nephews scurried into the kitchen and gobbled up all of the red-eyed gravy. When the king tasted it, he bellowed, "Queen, what have you done with my ham?" "My husband, it was not I, but Dame Mouserink and all her mouse children and nieces and nephews. They came into the kitchen and gobbled up all of the red-eyed gravy." The king was furious and declared that all the mice be killed at once. He brought in hundreds of cats who hunted down Dame Mouserink's mouse children and nieces and nephews and gobbled them up on the spot. Dame Mouserink swore revenge against the one thing the king and queen loved the most, Princess Pearly-Pat. Late one night, as Pearly-Pat slept, Dame Mouserink crept into her room and bit the little girl right on her nose. Suddenly, the beautiful child was changed. Her hair was wild and woolly. Her eyes were fixed and bulging. Her nose was long and crooked, and her mouth was changed into a little clapper with a hinge. The king was alarmed and counseled with his royal clockmaker, Herr Drosselmeyer, who told them how to remove Mouserink's curse. A young man with an exceedingly strong jaw must crack the rare nut, Crack-a-tuck, in his teeth and take 7 steps backward without falling. Then Pearlie Pat would be restored to her beauty. The king declared that such a man would win Pearlie Pat's hand in marriage and be the next king if he succeeded. He sent Drosselmeyer far and wide to find the rare nut Crackatuck and the boy who could crack it. Years passed while Pearlie Pat grew into a hideous-looking young woman who hid in her room, ashamed of her appearance. Finally, Drosselmeyer returned with a handsome young man who stepped forward and declared, "I have found the rare nut Crackatuck, and I will remove your daughter's curse." He took the nut in his hand, cracked it with his teeth, and took 7 steps backward. But on the 7th step, Dame Mouserink crept in behind him and tripped him up. The boy stumbled and fell. A flash of lightning, a crash of thunder. Suddenly, Princess Pearlie Pat was restored to beauty. But now, the young man had changed. His hair was wild and woolly. His eyes were fixed and bulging. His nose was long and crooked, and his mouth was changed into a little clapper with a hinge. Even so, he stepped forward, knelt down before Pearlie Pat and said, "I have removed your curse, and now claim my prize, the princess for my bride." But the spoiled princess took one look at him and said, "I would never marry anyone as ugly as you." "That is why the Nutcracker is so ugly," Drosselmeyer continued. "He would be free of the curse of Dame Mouserink if not for the selfishness of Princess Pearlie Pat." Then I remember Drosselmeyer looked right at Josie and said, "What about you, Miss Davis? Would you agree to marry anyone as ugly as that young man?" Josie sneered and said, "Why, I would just as soon marry a Yankee before I'd marry that ugly thing." Drosselmeyer seemed hurt by her words. I was glad that Eliza and Belt had interrupted us. It was time to leave and get ready for the party. I wanted to stay a little longer, but Josie was anxious to leave. The next time I saw Drosselmeyer was at the party that evening, and oh, what a glorious party that was.